being humble is actually a toxic trait.
Interesting. What do you mean by that?
So
Where do you get that from? Welcome to Profession Session. I'm your host, Brody Vinson, and in this show, I interview professionals of all different kinds, whether it be corporate stars, business owners, or entrepreneurs, and talk a little bit about what's allowed them to be so successful in their space. Today, my guest is Dr. Kevin Melendez. Kevin, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, man. It's really an honor. This is a first, so I appreciate you.
You told me that you had a little experience kind of being on the other side, doing some podcast interviews, but first time on this side, I'm glad to have you.
More on the interviewer side, so it's actually pretty cool to be on this side.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for being here. I'm excited to get into it.
Thank you. Let's do it.
So you are a physical therapist with your own practice, and we'll kind of get to how that all came to be eventually here, but I think it's going to be really interesting just getting into that because you've been able to do it from a younger age than most are able to do it, and you have a very unique backstory that goes way back into your early life.
Thank you. Yes, very early, and very grateful to have the opportunity to kind of share that. You know, it's like weird. There's a lot of like, man, like, am I really about to share? But I'm looking forward to it. I really am.
Awesome. Well, I think the best place to start would be kind of how you grew up playing sports. We talked about this a little bit off air. You played sports from a young age, and that kind of gave you your entry point into the space.
Yeah, man. Sports has been huge for me. It actually kind of starts at a very young age. Whenever we would spend time with my father, he used to be obsessed with these sport documentaries. So back in the day, he used to have all these VHSs of Michael Jordan, Larry Bird.
Have you seen The Last Dance?
Of course.
Yeah, that one's fantastic.
Epic. Made you realize, like, wait a minute, man, he was different.
He was really different. Yeah.
But he used to, a lot of times we used to watch these, he would pop them in, we would watch them. I was really fascinated with the storytelling side of things. So you realize the best documentaries of these sport figures were the ones that had these really big roller coaster type lives, right?
Yeah.
So they had really kind of difficult moments of their life, and you really were bought in during those moments, and you want them to get better, and then they did, and you were kind of, so I loved the storytelling of how metaphorically, like, the idea of sports has a real direct parallel to life.
I love that. Wow.
Yeah.
I've never heard that perspective of it before, but it really is like that. It's like the full story arcs. You'd really get hooked, especially like in The Last Dance, for example, when it's just talking about how they're trying to overcome like the loss that they had to the Detroit Pistons before they come back, and they come back with a chip on their shoulder. And one of the things that struck me the most about that documentary in particular is he always played like someone was out to get him.
Yeah.
Like he always felt like someone was out to get him.
He took everything.
Everything.
And my brother and I, because my brother used to, shout out to Michael Melendez, but he used to, we used to watch them together. And my favorite thing was those obstacles they had to overcome made the documentary better. So every time in our lives that we went through something hard, been through some difficult times, we would just tell each other at a very young age, I'm talking 5, 6, 7 years old, hey, it's just making your movie better.
Yeah.
Like, that's literally what we would tell each other. And it's crazy to hear, like, Joe Rogan recently was like, hey, live your life as if somebody's filming a documentary of you.
That's
right?
awesome.
And when he said that, I was like, you took that. Like, I was like, you took that from us. No, it was really cool to hear that he actually put that out there, because that's literally what we've been doing since like 5, 6 years old.
That's an awesome perspective. Just like whenever you're going through a hard time, just thinking this is going to teach me something and make my movie better. Mm-hmm. That's cool, man. So you kind of grew up watching these sports documentaries, and that kind of made you want to play sports yourself.
My dad played football. My mom was a cheerleader. She played volleyball. My family was really big in sports. So sports has always kind of been in our life. Like, we're diehard like Dolphin fans, Miami fans. I'm from Miami, so Miami Heat fans. And so it's always been in my life. And then the transition of why I got so obsessed with sports was how it was a direct way of me being in this weird area where I can constantly be better, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you look at my sport is basketball, majority, and basketball is an imperfect sport. Like, it is literally the definition of an imperfect sport, right? Steph Curry is the greatest shooter of all time, and he shoots 45%.
Right.
Right? So every day you have a chance to get a little bit better. You're never going to be perfect, but it's like, oh, I have
There's
something.
always something to strive for.
Yeah, so you wake up with a purpose. Right.
Would you say you have that perspective about like your entire life and your career is like you're never going to be perfect, but you're always striving to just get a little bit better every day?
100%. I truly believe that happiness is in progress, not perfection.
I love that. I completely agree. It's kind of falling in love with the journey, not the destination.
And if I see myself getting close to my goal, quote unquote, it's like, all right, let me push that.
Yeah.
Right? Because I don't want perfection. Like, where can I go? Where can I go? Where can I go?
Well, I've heard examples of like an author that has some breakout best-selling book or something like that, and all of a sudden this big thing happens in their career, and they just get this like post-depression almost because they're like, oh, I did the thing. Like, what do I do now? So I think it's good to just keep kicking the goal down the road and like always have something to strive for.
100%. And when it comes so that's what kind of led me to more basketball, which is, it's interesting because I'm not the tallest person. I'm 5'7", 5'8" on a good day, and I chose basketball, right? I think intuitively it was because, it put me even more behind the 8-ball, right? Like,
right.
Okay, this is more difficult, a longer journey of progress.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I didn't think about it then. Like, obviously, I look at it now as like, I was doing it subconsciously.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
It was just something that you had seen in those documentaries and it kind of like been a formative experience for you.
Yes.
So you get into sports early, and from there, what were the kind of early years of sports like for you?
Hey man, I was good.
Yeah.
I was good. I was a good basketball player, man.
Based on the mentality you're describing, I
was good. I was good. And I'm learning that and I wouldn't have said that like maybe like a year ago. I'd be like, I was all right. But like I'm learning that like humility, like being humble is actually a toxic trait.
Interesting. What do you mean by that?
So
where do you get that from?
I learned it from Russ had come out with a book.
Okay.
And I read it was an audiobook, so I read it or listened to it. And by the way, is listening to an audiobook, is that considered reading a book?
This is a good question. I go back and forth on this.
No, I do too.
I would love to say yes, but I think there's something different about like reading and reading.
Yeah.
I think I wouldn't say it's considered reading a book. I would consider it almost more like listening to a podcast.
Yeah.
But that being said, I do it because a lot of times I just don't have time or like the patience to sit down and read a book anymore. I used to love to growing up and like would do it all the time, like was just always reading, but now I'm just on the go all the time. It's like I only really have time for audiobooks.
Yeah.
I would say I don't consider it reading a book, but I do consider it very great.
So when someone was like, how many books have you read this year? You're like, how I've listened to?
Maybe you can consider it like a half book.
Yeah. Count it in halves.
Yeah. If you listen to 2 audiobooks, you read 1 book.
I love it. I'm going to use that. But so I listened to an audiobook and Russ had said that. And I was like, and I had the same reaction. I said, wait a minute. If you look up the definition of humble, it is to think you're less than somebody else. Right? So you act as if you're less than somebody.
Gotcha.
Right? And we're taught that. Like, we're taught that that's actually like a good thing. Right? We don't realize how psychologically that puts you at a real disadvantage. Right? If you look at all the successful people, there's a difference between arrogance, right? And there's a difference between confidence. And so I have this kind of like weird thing where like by nature I'm humble and humility because that's the way I was raised, right? But now I'm starting to like, I want to be humbly confident.
Like, humbly confident. I like that.
Yeah, because confidence comes from just keeping promises to yourself. Like,
ooh, yeah.
Arrogance comes from lying about the things you do, right?
Damn.
Like you're trying to convince yourself you did something.
That's a good delineation right there. I like that. You said confidence comes from keeping promises to yourself.
Yeah.
And arrogance comes from lying to yourself.
About the things that
lying about the things that you've done.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Probably be a clip.
Yeah, I'll take it. But it's really true. That's probably been a big game changer. So with sports, that was good, you know, and just like anything. Or when it came to my high school year, so I was really good going into, elementary, middle school, and then high school came, and that's when the injuries came in.
Right. Yeah. So what was your first injury?
It was actually spring football practice. I was 14. Oh, man, I'll never forget this.
It's early.
Oh, my gosh. It was frustrating. So it was spring football. Shout out to East River High School.
So is that freshman year?
Going into sophomore year.
Going into sophomore year, okay.
Going into sophomore year. And we had I would play running back. And we had done a quarterback says hut. We had done a screen to the right. He doesn't throw it to me. I was wide open, right? He doesn't throw it to me. The coach goes off. He stops the play. The defense is listening. He's like, how dare you? He's right open. You need to realize that's your read, blah, blah, blah. He goes, we're going to run the same play to the opposite side.
Oh, no.
The defense hears him say this.
Oh, no. I can see where this is getting set up.
I remember, I was like, are you kidding? I was like, oh, man, come on. All right, well, I got to do it.
Yeah.
Right? So I run this screen. He lobs it. It was kind of a high lob. I catch it, I make the first guy miss, and then I have 2 linebackers just put their helmet right to run to the front of the shoulder and run to the back.
Ooh.
Yeah, mind you, those 2 linebackers ended up playing D1 football.
Sheesh.
Right. So like I remember it's sublux. So subluxation is when it comes out and comes right back in. All right. So it's not a full dislocation. So if you look at a full dislocation, it comes out and kind of it doesn't have the ability to come in. So kind of either you get a posterior or anterior dislocation, but it goes all the way out and the bone doesn't allow, the shoulder joint doesn't allow it to come back in.
Okay. So we were talking about this a little off air. I guess what I had was a subluxation.
Yes.
Okay.
It's like stretching a rubber band, but the rubber band is still strong enough where it snapped it right back.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right. So that's what happened. A subluxation came right back. But I remember like just laying there and just, my friend, like my best friend Rose, he comes running. He was like, "Hey, get up!" And I'm like, "I can't. Like I can't."
Yeah.
And then that's when I had injured my shoulder the first time.
Yeah. So you get that subluxation, and what was the road to recovery like from that?
It was interesting. I went to PT for the first time. Right. And believe it or not, I did what we had talked about a little bit off camera. Physical therapy is a form of medicine, right? It's through movement, is and exercises and things like that. Is what is the premise of it.
Do you have a good definition of physical therapy, by the way? Like your personal definition?
My personal definition is physical therapy is a form of medicine to allow someone to functionally move better in the things that they want to do in their life.
Love that.
Right?
Awesome.
So, because there's so many avenues of how that can play.
Sure, yeah.
Right? This profession of physical therapy can go from an acute hospital, right, to an outpatient, from an inpatient to women's health to orthopedic. Like, there's so many avenues, but at the end of the day, it's all about how can we make this person that's in front of me move better.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
So I had gone to physical therapy, but I didn't finish, like we talked about, I didn't finish. If physical therapy is a form of medicine, if you compare it to like an antibiotic, if you don't take the full amount, then it cannot work, right? There's the ways that it maybe it doesn't work as well as it should have.
You could kind of fall back into the same patterns as before, or the same injury.
Yeah, and there's a reason why there's like so many tests and measures to say, okay, this person's ready to go back, right? Return to sport. So I didn't I started to feel better, and we didn't know any better. My mom was like, all right, maybe it saves me a couple of trips from going to therapy. He's already feeling better, like he'll go back. And then fast forward, so that next probably 7 months later, basketball season came. We were playing against Winter Park, humbly. No, I'm not going to be humble. I think I had like 14, 15 points in the first half against Winter Park. And I went for a steal, I think it was, and then my shoulder came out. But this time it came out fully.
Oh, the full dislocation. Wow.
And I knew it was bad because it was one of those where like everyone in the crowd kind of goes,
like
that
you
kind of thing.
See it and everything.
Yeah,
like
it was disgusting. Like
yeah.
I'm wearing tank tops, so you can really see like my entire like shoulder
and you can't push that back in.
So this is the thing, you can if you know how to.
Okay.
So it was out, and then in front of the entire my high school teammates, they were there, so they can attest to this. I pulled and yanked it back in.
Because you knew how to do it?
I knew how to do it. I forgot why I knew how to do it. I think I'm curious by nature, by the way. That's probably my biggest like superpowers. I'm curious.
I get that from you, just like talking about all the different things that you're into. Like you kind of dive deep into things.
Yeah, I've always been like that as a kid. Like drove my mom crazy, but I'm just like that. I love that. And so I think I found out how to do it because I was like, if this ever happens again, so I found out. And so I put it back into place. And it's also because I wanted to keep playing.
Yeah.
Right? So I ended up going back in. I played for like 3 minutes, and I was like, I'm actually not doing anything for my team. This is really bad. So I come out, and my favorite part about the story is we were playing against Winter Park, which Austin Rivers played for Winter Park.
Right, yeah. Someone was just telling me they ran into him at like an LA Fitness the other day.
Wow. Yeah, man, shout out to Austin Rivers. He was a legend in the Orlando kind of community for basketball. So, thank you for putting.
I can only imagine playing against him like in high school.
Oh, so fun! Quickest first step I ever played with.
Really?
Played against. Yeah, quickest first step. Wow. But yeah. So his dad had come to see him. So Doc Rivers, Doc Rivers,
of course,
NBA coach, and he was there watching the game, and after the game was over, and to this day, like Doc, like. I appreciate you, like straight up, because he had no reason to do this. No reason. The game was over. I have an ice pack on my shoulder. I'm just sitting down, kind of head down, right, by myself. Everyone's trying to take photos with him, whatever. He goes out of his way. He walks up to me, and he goes, "Hey, you were playing great before you got injured. I look forward to seeing you get back on the court."
That's awesome.
Had no reason to do that. I didn't know him. He had no idea. I'm a random person.
Yeah.
Right? And so I just remember being like, oh man, that's cool. All right, let's go.
Yeah, just got you hyped.
Yeah,
ready to
yeah.
get
I was
back
like,
on.
let's get started. So hey, let's go to PT.
Yeah.
Right? So I ended up going to see an orthopedic surgeon. He was like, hey, this is exactly what he said. He goes, it's not going to get any worse. So you can do two things. We had 9 games left in the season. He goes, you can either get it fixed now, or you can wait till the end of the season, and we'll get it fixed then.
Okay.
I'm competitive.
Yep. You got it fixed right there.
No,
No?
I said, because the process of recovery is, can be 4 to 6 months, right?
Oh, okay.
So I said, okay, I'll wait for the end of the season. So 9 games went by, and every single game, my shoulder would dislocate, and I would put it back in. I didn't know.
Oh my God.
So that exact event that happened at Winter Park, I did it for the rest of the 9 games. I just didn't know whether it was going to happen the first play of the game, or it was going to happen in the end of the fourth quarter.
Oh my God. So you would just stay out the rest of the game once it happened?
Once it happened, yeah, I had to stay out.
Oh my God.
So that was the deal that I made with my coach, right? I was like, hey, let me play
until it comes out.
Until it comes out, I'll sit out.
That's insane.
Right? Yeah, so I did that, and then I got the surgery, went to therapy, and my shoulder's been, and I finished the entire therapy, and my shoulder's been absolutely incredible since then.
There you go. So right off the bat, you just have this incredible experience with physical therapy.
Yeah.
It completely fixes you. And at that point, we'd kind of talked about this off air a little bit, but you kind of immediately realized that you wanted to do physical therapy pretty much, right?
Fell in love with it at that point. Yeah, and a shout out to my physical therapist at that, who took care of me. I fell in love with it. I was like, wait a minute, you guys do exercises and properly dosed and so on and so forth, and get to build a rapport with your patients. Like you're spending 45 minutes to an hour with these people, every 2 to 3 times a week.
Yeah,
you build a relationship. So your job, you're that person who was building a relationship, and I found that so amazing, right? And there came I guess at that age you think of the status of it. Oh, and you guys are doctors. It's freaking cool, like that. All right, cool, because I love educating. So okay, that means I'm going to be in school a little bit longer. That's cool. I like learning. So
yeah.
So it gave me that. Like I fell in love with the fact you build relationships, the customer service side of things, and you get better through exercise. Like this is what I love. Like this is a no-brainer.
And it's around sports, which is your passion.
Oh my God. I was like, this is a no-brainer. This is a no-brainer. And it saved money. It also helped save I saw my it could have been a lot worse.
Yeah.
Right. I could have gotten injured again. I could have, if I didn't finish the physical therapy, I probably might have, and kept playing sports or wasn't properly checked, I could have had it again, because the number one sign for injury is history of injury. Right. So yeah.
It's a lot easier to get re-injured than injured in the first place.
Yeah, so after I had physical therapy for that first time, that's when I started. I would do observation hours since then. So I would tell my mom, "Hey, mom, can I go twice a week to just go watch and observe?" Right. I didn't even know this is a requirement actually to be able to get into PT school. Right.
But you knew you wanted to do it.
I didn't want to do it. I just wanted to be around it. Just wanted to be around it.
So you're 14 years old, and you just start basically shadowing physical therapists at clinics and learning the craft from that young of an age, because you already know you want to do it. And then kind of fast forwarding a little bit, I know we talked about off air, you actually had another injury.
Yeah. So I learned that injury is I've always been and this I think goes back to the idea of, what do we know what to do? We know that if we want something, we work hard. Right? Okay, well, all right, I'm a reverse engineer kind of guy.
Yeah.
Right. So I look at where I want to go and I go, okay, how do I get there? Right. All right, I got to work insanely hard. I got to shoot this many shots. I got to do X, Y, Z. I got to do it. I got really crazy. Okay. So my schedule when I was 16 years old, and also your junior year is your most important year when it comes to getting scholarships.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
That's very true.
To getting your eyes. So my probably from June to October, my schedule was this. I would wake up at 5 o'clock. I was fortunate enough to go to the gym before school started to get shots up.
That's awesome.
Yeah, my coach. And so I would get shots up for about an hour. I would go to school, and then after that I ran cross country. So I would run about 8 to 12 miles a day.
Wow.
Right. And then after that I would do homework and then go play basketball for about 2 to 3 hours. And then I worked at our neighborhood gas station from 8 to 12.
Holy shit.
Right. And then I did that for about from June for October.
Wow.
Yeah, to get ready.
Yeah.
What I realized and is there's also a thing called working smart. And I had no concept of what recovery was. I had no idea. I only knew, if something hurts, push through it.
Yeah.
If this, I don't know what to eat. I didn't know what proper recovery was. I didn't know, my back is starting to hurt, but I just got to push through it.
You didn't know you needed to rest a little bit sometimes.
Yeah, or like what is basketball's a quad dominant sport. Maybe I should work on my hamstrings a little bit more, right? You don't know those kind of things. You don't. So I just worked really, really hard. And then my basketball season, tryouts come. I was fortunate enough where I told my coach, hey, I'm starting my back. Like, actually, I missed states for cross country.
Okay.
Because my back started to hurt. I was like, hey, something's going on with me. Like, something's going on. So I missed states.
Wow.
Yeah, I was pissed. I ran. My average mile was 5:03. You know?
Oh, jeez.
Yeah,
That's insane.
yeah. So I was pissed, but so I missed that, and then tryouts came. I was fortunate. My coach was like, "Hey, we need you for the season. Like, just sit out. You're good." Right? I go, "Okay, bet." First game, I missed practices. First game comes. I wake up. I can't feel my legs. I was like, I will never forget. I remember I was like, I just started yelling.
Yeah.
I just started yelling, Mom, I can't. And next thing, and then a little bit, my mom came, kind of rub my legs, and then finally I felt my toes. And I was like, okay, I'm not paralyzed, but I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Right. I went to orthopedic specialist, and he said, yeah, you severely herniated your L1, L2, L3, and he was like, that's why you kind of had that ridiculous symptoms down your leg. Now looking back on it, but he told me that, and he was like, yeah, you're not playing this season.
Yeah.
Mind you, think about what I just did from June to October. Like a 16-year-old kid who no one was telling him to do this. I was doing it, right?
Yeah.
I was
Devastated.
Devastated.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Devastated. And I was also in pain. So for the next 8 months, 6 to 8 months, I was in pain in school. Like genuinely, like I couldn't, like that was there's so many stories of like me laughing, and all you would like me, like say I'm in class laughing, and my friend Felix still tells me about this. Like I would laugh, but you wouldn't see my like trunk move. It would just be my legs. Right?
Whoa!
Because I was like, I couldn't like.
You're just like terrified.
Yeah, I was so terrified. I was terrified. Yeah.
Jeez, so you got this just like season-ending injury to your back, and I guess that brought you back to physical therapy, obviously.
Yeah, so they wanted to do surgery. Orthopedic surgeon was like, "Hey, we got to do." Like 16 years old, he was like, "We have to do surgery."
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know what intuition or whatever, but I was like, I'm 16. Why am I doing back surgery? Like,
and you had gotten deep into physical therapy already.
I had already observed, right? I was already observing. I had that like, wait a minute, like they're kind of saying you don't need to from time to time, blah blah blah. Well, what if I try it? So I told my mom, "Hey, mom, ask him if I can do physical therapy."
Yeah.
Like, bet, let's do it.
Yeah.
And fast forward 8-9 months later, or 12 months later, I played my senior year and got offered a couple Division III, Division II scholarships.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you had like made the full recovery without the surgery, and how did that feel? Just like coming out of that, having like proven them wrong when they said you need a surgery to make this happen, but you did it through physical therapy.
What it made me realize was, if I wasn't a curious person, or if I didn't have that level of whatever it was, like exposure to the field, I would have just done what the doctor said. I would have done what the surgeon said, right? Yeah. And there's time and place for surgery. There's 100%. I got shoulder surgery. I'm proof of that, right? But the way that I always kind of explain it is, a cook is gonna like to cook, right? A chef likes to cook. A painter likes to paint, right? An artist likes to create music or whatever. A surgeon's gonna like to do surgery.
Yeah. So they're going to suggest it right off the bat.
Now, there's a time and place when you have to get a good meal. So or like a chef, right? There's a time and place when you want a nice painting or a nice song, right? There's a time and place when you do need surgery, right? Physical therapy, they like to do exercise and move, right? So even that in itself is like, okay, I align with that, right? Now, that doesn't mean there's a time and place when that's not appropriate. Very little, very, very small amount of time, but there are a time and place when that's not appropriate.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, well, you do have to get surgery. But so that's how I aligned with, like, it made me realize, like, oh, there is a business side to it.
Yeah.
Right. I would have profited him business wise. And I would have just done it without okay, I got to do it.
Yeah.
Right.
So you just realize, like, they're gonna suggest it to you no matter what, but you had kind of done it this alternate route, and that was physical therapy for you, and that kind of, I'm sure, just reaffirmed that this is the thing for you.
Yes, it was alternate options. That's the best way to put it. Like, most people, when they think of the surgery, when that happens, like, oh, this is what I have to do. No, there's alternative things you can do.
And that's got to be empowering too, just being able to offer that alternative option to someone. That's 100%. Probably another thing that kind of like draws you to physical therapy.
100%. And the biggest thing I tell people is like, it's funny, like let's say somebody has a shoulder issue, right? Let's try, if you try PT, first of all, you go through an appropriate assessment and differential diagnosis to realize like, okay, it's actually appropriate to get physical therapy, right?
Yeah.
If you come in and it's not appropriate, okay, yeah, we need to refer you to where you need to go. That's what makes us a doctor, is that we can differentially diagnose, right? You come in, we do you should do a very thorough evaluation to figure out, okay, this is musculoskeletal related. It is muscle, bones, ligaments, tendons, which are the things that we can help, right? If it's not, oh, you do have a fracture, you do have, or those kind of things, okay, you do need to go where you need to go. But if you do physical therapy, right, and you get better, great. Even if you have surgery, guess what you're going to do afterwards?
Physical therapy.
You're going to do physical therapy, right? So by doing it before, you save yourself time and money.
Yeah, you just cut to the chase.
So that's one thing that I love about it.
So you kind of go through this experience, like you're even more reaffirmed in the physical therapy, and by this point you've gotten offered a couple scholarships, and it's time for college. So did you end up taking any of those scholarships, or did you just decide, no, I'm going all in on physical therapy?
I decided I'm going to go all in on physical therapy. I was fortunate enough to also get academic scholarships, and I remember having a discussion with like I think it might have been like my grandparents, or something, like my mom or grandparents, and they were like, we're just tired of seeing you hurt.
Yeah.
Like, you can go do something with your brain. Like, I said, okay.
Yeah.
That's fair. And at that point, I was
some sage wisdom from the grandparents.
100%. But at that point, I also had this like weird relationship with basketball. Like it was a, I say relationship because it had been there all my life. So like first love, like I was frustrated with it.
Yeah.
I was very frustrated with it. Hey man, how dare you do this to me? Like it was weird. Like I put in so much work, so much effort, and you're always hurting me.
Exactly.
Like it didn't make any sense. Like I was so frustrated. So at that time I was like, you know what? I'm gonna take a step
little
away.
Break.
I'm gonna go do the college thing.
Yeah.
And live a college life,
So you go straight into it and physical therapy right off the bat. What does that process look like kind of throughout undergrad?
So I knew going in, I was like, okay, I knew the process. So the process is you get your undergrad, right? You apply. You can either decide to apply your senior year, which allows you to get in, because you apply and then you get in the next cycle. So
right.
So if it's senior year, you'll start right off rip. I knew that I kind of wanted to do a little bit of a not a gap year, but I wanted a break to get me ready for the
master's kind of full in part of it.
Just the demands of PT school. And I went away to USF, to Tampa. So I was looking forward to going, okay, just to kind of like a reverse engineer, right? That's kind of like my thing. Like so I knew, okay, well, if I want to start grad school, I knew that was 3 to 4 years. Before that, I know that once I start that, I'm going to be really involved. Like it's going to be all I do, right? Like, okay, so before I do that, I want to make sure I spend good quality time with my friends and family.
Right.
Right. So I knew, okay, I need time for that. Well, okay, you need some time, you need some money too, right? So, okay, well, 9 months is a good amount of time. And then, okay, I graduate, XYZ. So that's how I went. So during my 4 years, I knew I wanted to do PT, so I got a health professions degree. And I did that mainly because I didn't want to take organic chem too. And in order to be a biochemistry, you have to take your organic chem too. And I was like, I don't want to do it. So
I heard a lot of horror stories about Orgo
1 and 2. I was like, I refuse. I just didn't. I was like, I just didn't want to do it. So they were, and the PT schools that I was interested in it wasn't a prerequisite. So I was like, why do I need to do that if I don't? So you just have to make sure you get your 4-year degree or your bachelor, and then you have to make sure that you've taken the prerequisite courses to get into the grad school program that you need.
Right.
Right. So once you do that, you apply through by the PTCAS, and then you get accepted, and then whatever program you're in, either 3 or 4 years, then you finish.
We talked a little bit off air that you ended up choosing a program that was a little bit longer and was kind of a hybrid program. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, and it was different. It was different. It's not the traditional. Traditional was three years right after grad school, so 7 years total, get your doctorate. Mine was 4 years, so it's a year longer. And the best way I explain it, it's like taking a class and a half less a semester, right? So if you add that up for how many semesters, that's where that extra kind of the year comes in. But I did that for a reason. One was because I didn't have to move anywhere, right? So the financial aspect of moving and having to live in that area, if you have to go into that school, so you save money that way. But two, I wanted to be able to work and make money to set me up for
while you're in school still.
While I'm in school still.
Yeah.
So I worked as a PT tech for a physical therapy company, and that allowed me to learn and kind of use what I learned in PT school, and even if it's just being around it, I loved being around it. I love being around it, right? So versus just being in a classroom all the time. So it was that, and then the best part about it that I took from it was I knew I wanted to eventually open up my own clinic. So I spent a lot of spare time not learning a lot about the business side of it.
Right.
Okay, what are the different clinics? What are the different softwares? What are the different EMR systems? Okay, how do they go about creating appointments? How do they go about the marketing side of things? I was in tune and curious about that side of things. So, and it's hard to do that for a traditional PT because you're
just too busy.
You're just too busy. Like it is a difficult. Shout out to
too many classes at once.
It's really intense, and so and that's okay because you do that and you're done a year before, right? So essentially, they get to do what I did. In that year, if you finish a year before me, then that year could be spent being a PT and learning, right? I just was like, I want to start learning now.
Yeah.
Right. So how can I start learning now? Like I know if I went to a traditional, it would just be I wouldn't be satisfied with how I'm living this progression of this journey.
You wanted to be just fully learning it, getting the business experience while you were doing it.
Yeah.
What did some of that business research look like in your spare time?
Simple things. When I got hired as a PT tech, one of the things when they hired, they asked me, they're like, what do you want to do in 5-10 years? And I was like, I want to own a clinic.
Yeah.
And so my boss at the time, shout out Chris Burley, or Dr. Chris Burley, but he took me under his wing, and he would always kind of he would be open to answering any questions that I had, and even more so, like he would send me, research or PDFs or whatever, like podcasts, so he was a good part of that. He was my first like mentor to go, okay, hey, this is, if you really want to. So he didn't just teach me PT side of things. He was also like, hey, here's these random.
And he was the owner of the clinic you were working at?
He was the center manager.
Center manager. Cool.
Center manager.
So you got to learn about like with the management aspect of the whole clinic.
From a day to day.
Awesome.
Yeah. And then on my end of things, I learned a lot. I wanted to learn a lot more. I would personally listen to like podcasts, read things, or read books. I would lock myself in like a Barnes and Noble at the time and like pick up financial books. Like, hey, I was just really obsessed with it. I was really like, okay, what is?
You knew what you wanted.
I knew what I wanted. I was like, okay, and if I'm going to do it, I look at, this is where it goes back to being sports, right? I essentially look at my life like a besides being a movie documentary, but also like a sports career, right? So if the times when I'm kind of going out and doing those things, like at that time, I definitely looked at it like, oh, it's taken away from me being the best this that I'm doing.
Right.
Like a professional athlete, right? Hey, why is that professional athlete out clubbing on, the night before a game, right? Like, so I look at it like that. Wait, if I had a test this day, what am I doing? Like, if I'm trying to be the best at this, like.
Your sports career per se is now physical therapy. Like it's your sport.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
You just transfer it right over. Rather than being basketball, you switch it over to now it's physical therapy.
Yes.
It's becoming the physical therapist that you
Yes, and that's where I realized that I loved the game of basketball because it taught me a lot. But what I realized, what I actually love is the idea of growth and progress. That's what I'm obsessed with.
I'd say that's the biggest thing I learned from just getting in the gym, like when I did, and like learning how to exercise, how to work out, and being in sports as a young kid, like just the growth and the progress and seeing the direct result of putting in hard work and seeing it pay off.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It is. If you just keep doing it, you get better and better.
Yeah, I the number one ingredient that I tell people to success is really consistency.
That's a fact that transfers over to anything in life. It really does. Exercise, career, whatever you're talking about.
Yeah, and also going back, it's funny, at 14, one of the things, random. Actually, I mentioned two things because I think I'm always like fascinated why I even thought this.
Yeah.
Right. So at 4 and about 9 years old, my mom, shout out to my mom. I went up to her one time at like 9 years old and I said, Mom, if we sleep 8 hours a day, that means when I'm 90, I would have slept for 30 years of my life.
Yeah.
It drove me crazy.
It's a third of your life.
Third of my freaking life. It drove me nuts. At that age, and I was like, I can't do that. Life is too, like 30 years of my life, if I live to 90, I can't do that. I can't do that. So, people, luckily I have a certain level of comprehension, right? But a lot of it was, I just have lived more time than people my age. So what I mean by that is like, it got to a point where I got used to sleeping 3 to 4 hours a day.
That's crazy.
Starting at 9 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's continued?
That's continued until I realize now I'm at a stage in my life where it's actually a detriment.
Right.
Right. So we'll get into that side of where like it's actually everything happens for a reason, but I've actually realized that now I'm actually in my phase of life where I'm trying to prioritize sleep a little more.
Yeah.
Now, does that mean I'm there? No, I'm trying to read. I'm still at 4 hours and 30 minutes, 40 minutes, but I realized the importance of it through how it's affected my mental health and things of that nature, where I've gone, okay, I have to start prioritizing this a little more. But back then, it was my way. It was how I made up for. It's how I became, how I had the time to do things.
Yeah, I have an interesting perspective on this. I read a book about sleep a couple years ago by Dr. Matthew Walker, and fantastic book. I think it's called Why We Sleep or something like that. And it goes
Nice.
Deep into the science of why you sleep. Yeah, I definitely recommend it, especially if you're getting more into it. But it goes deep into the science of why we sleep and why it's so important. And I kind of left reading that book, and we were talking about like, what does it mean to read a book? This is one I actually like physically read. It was that good. But it goes so deep into it, and the perspective I left with it was, yes, it does kind of take away from the hours in your day, but the hours that you do have left after you sleep are going to be that much more efficient and effective. You're going to be on the frickin' ball like all day long. And it's definitely been true for me. If I get 8 hours of sleep in a night, I am rock solid, just laser focused all frickin' day. And I don't even waver. Like there's literally I'm not tired for a second.
Brody, but what got to me was, in no documentary, or I shouldn't say no, but they don't show you the sleep.
Right. So it gives you this kind of skewed view of it.
Right? So I was like, no, what they do show is a person who goes, like, think about it, like the B-roll of A Beautiful Mind, right? Like the B-roll of him at the chalkboard and all night and all day, right? I was like, oh, I got to do that. Yeah. That makes the movie good.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know I got to do this test, and I know I got to do this. Okay, well, hey, someone's recording. Hey, this is how I got to act.
It's like one of those things you just kind of have to learn the hard way, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd say that I have that perspective. I only read that book a couple of years ago. Though. Like going through my undergrad, I would do these all-nighters.
Yeah.
Like I went to UCF, and it was called All Night Study, this little like study area that they had. And people would be in there literally like all night, just like holed up in a little
not being efficient at all.
Exactly. I would I started noticing, I was like, hold on, like the nights that I do this, whether it be writing a paper or like taking a test or something, I'm doing really bad work, or I'm going into a test like just really mentally unprepared, like and just crashing through it. So I just started. It also helped me just be a little bit better about not procrastinating, kind of taking care of things early, and just understanding, like you said, reverse engineering, figuring out you have this due on this day, and you got to work backwards and understand what you want to have time for between now and then. And if you want to have time to let loose and do whatever a day before, don't save it till the last minute. Do it before that.
100%. And that's what it's all about. And Gary, actually, we talk about this a little bit, but probably the biggest thing I took from Gary Vee, he's somebody that I'm fascinated by, like the way that he kind of goes about his things. But the biggest thing I remember taking from it is macro patience, micro speed, right? So if you want really organic things to grow and be beautiful, you have to understand, in the grand scheme of things, it's going to take time.
Yes.
Right? So if you want an organic, beautiful thing to grow, it's going to take time. But from a day-to-day,
You got to be speedy.
You got to be speedy.
Yeah.
Right? You got to understand that you have things you got to get done. You got to do it. You got to do it. You got to do it. Keeping promises to yourself, therefore building that confidence to allow for you to have the patience.
You have to have the macro patience, but understand that accomplishing that goal is going to have a lot of tiny little steps that you have to get done quickly.
And as long as you know that the framework of your micro speed is for your macro goals, then you can have the understanding that, first of all, you don't have to have a perfect day, right? Because your goals are, it's a big goal. It's something that's going to take a long time.
Yeah.
So as long as you just get better every day, right? So you don't feel like crap if, oh man, my dreams are done if I didn't accomplish everything I had to do today. No. Our goal in this with these micro speeds is just to continue to get better.
You're probably going to get more accomplished trying to accomplish everything in a day than you are just by not trying at all. I mean, like, if you don't get everything accomplished, you still probably got a ton accomplished trying to get all of that stuff accomplished.
And building confidence with also knowing that it's not about getting a bunch done. It's just, even if you set like 2 to 3 things, like, yo, these are my non-negotiable things I got to do.
Yes.
Right? And then everything is cherry on top.
And you do that every day.
You do that every day. Because if you overpromise yourself, you're not going to be able to accomplish everything. Therefore, you're now going to kill your confidence.
That was actually like my probably deepest kind of thesis as a personal trainer. This is the point I had to nail into people constantly.
Yeah.
It's like people actually, this blows people away when I tell them if they don't have background in the industry, but people would come in like a new potential client or something, and I'd be kind of setting them up to like as a new client, and they'd be like, all right, I want to come in 3 days a week. And I would be like, we're going to start with 2.
Yeah.
Maybe 1.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to start with 1 or 2 and see if you can handle that for like a couple months.
Yeah.
If you can handle that, we'll build on that.
Yeah.
But we're not going to come in 5 days a week and just burn you out because you're going to hate me. You're going to hate doing this. And in the macro scale, you're not going to stick with it. We're going to make sure that you can do 1 day a week for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And once you get that, we'll make it 2.
Yep.
And we'll stick with that. That is how you build consistency right there.
100%.
One step at a time, 1 foot after the other, just kind of building on it a little bit at a time.
100%.
I love that. It's a great perspective. I mean, it's served me very well. It sounds like it served you very well
100%.
too. So we got deep there.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I like getting deep on that. We have not even gotten to this yet, but you kind of go through your master's and like getting your physical therapy degree.
So actually, just for a framework, you go undergrad and then you go straight to doctorate.
Straight to doctorate. Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That must be one of the few fields that's like that.
I don't know.
I guess most medical things.
Most medical things. So the way that I kind of look at them, it's going to sound terrible when I say this, but it's a good analogy because people understand. A master's sometimes to a doctorate is essentially like getting your AA before getting a bachelor's.
Gotcha.
Right? So if you go straight into a state college that gets your bachelor, you don't get an AA degree.
Yep.
Right?
It's true.
Like, it's just your bachelor's.
Yeah.
Right? So if you get your doctor, you don't get your master's.
Right.
Doctor.
Okay. And yeah, I think that's the case for most medical fields. Now that I think about it, you kind of go right into your doctor program.
Yep.
Okay, so you go right into your doctorate program, and how does that look?
Hard.
Yeah.
Hard.
And you mentioned that you were working during it.
Yeah.
So you're kind of getting this experience as you're getting your doctorate. That lasts about 4 years. I guess, how did you see your kind of path getting out of that? What did you want that to look like?
So I knew that the idea was for me to open up my own clinic. My mind was always, because based on the people who are around and have done it in the industry, is they essentially work for a traditional PT, and then whenever they saved up enough or whenever they feel the confidence to do it, they'll open up a clinic.
That's the average path.
That's the average path. Maybe 5-10 years after them working, maybe 20 years of them working, they're like, finally, I can do it.
But based on the way you've kind of set this all up, I would say you're not one for following the average path.
No, and again, it kind of in a weird way is like how it's off the premise of like, if I do it that way, my movie is just like everyone. Right? So I started thinking, okay.
It's not a box office thriller.
Yeah. It makes it different. Grad school taught me, it was hard. It was, so a big part of it was the fact that like, I would work full time while doing it from time to time. Like I would only sign on really to work as a tech for like 15 hours.
Yeah.
But just through the turnovers of a regular kind of job, I would go from like 15 to like 40 to like 20. So it got those times when I was working like 40, which is a full-time job, to doing PT school at the same time was like, oh man. And the biggest thing that suffered from it was my self-care, my self-love, and really my mental health. So, I started grad school at at 165 pounds, 9%, 8% body fat, best shape of my life, right?
Yeah.
I graduated PT school at 223.
Wow. Okay. So you just like went in full force, like the health kind of suffered and took a back seat for a little while.
Took a huge backseat, right? Huge backseat.
Well, you're in good shape now. It seems like you recovered.
Thank you. Yeah. It's been a blessing to kind of go back into that. Go the other way, which is amazing. But that's the kind of toll it took on me, right? And so during my last year of rotation, so the way that my program works is your first 3 were courses, and then your last 9 months were rotations, where you do your internships.
Okay.
All right.
At just different clinics?
At 3 different clinics.
Okay.
3 different settings.
And do they try to put you in 3 different types of clinics, like 3 different types of focuses?
You have to do an outpatient. You have to do a neuro, or at least my curriculum, right? You have to do a neuro, and then you have to do an acute.
Okay.
So what that means is outpatient is more traditional. Hey, you can walk into an outpatient. Neuro was more like, your stroke, your spinal cord, those kind of things. What would happen for like an inpatient. And then an acute would be like if you go to the hospital.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
So those kind of 3 settings, and they do that so you can be a well-rounded therapist.
And probably get a good idea of which area you want to specialize in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, and what made mine, I guess, a little more different than most, or I should say my year, or 2 years, depending before and after, it was during COVID. Right. So I literally did my rotations during COVID.
Yeah.
That was wild. That was wild. And like it was crazy. But the thing that I learned starting from the first one, and I'm so grateful, was the first thing he did when he came in. He was like, what do you want to take away from this? Like, I'm not going to be that guy that like tells you, oh, this is the way. And he's like, what's your takeaway? And then I told him, I want, at the end of the day, like, I want to open up a clinic. I want to learn as much as I can, but like, just know, like, I'm a physical therapist by trade. It's what I love to do. Right. But I also love the entrepreneurial and business side of things. Right. Right. So don't neglect, if you're going to talk to me about teaching me, like, don't neglect that, because that's important to me.
Yeah. Talk to me about a little bit of both sides.
Exactly. Yeah. And his eyes lit up, and he was like, say less.
Yeah. I mean, for someone who really loves the industry, that's exactly the kind of person you want to have under you, is someone that you could teach and kind of pass on your lessons to. Like,
and he was 50. I say 50 years. You'd probably get mad at me if I say he was he had been in the industry for a long time.
He was older than you.
He was older than me. And so he had seen so much and understood that, and the funny thing was, because he understood the business, and I didn't realize this until he told me. We had a conversation like during the time, because it's 12 weeks in every place, and he goes, Kevin, I'm not even hired by this. I'm an independent contractor. And then he went into why. Like, that's not the case. Like, most places, they're hired by the employee, they get their benefit, blah 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 blah. He's like, no, I independently contract. Right? It allows me to do my own thing on the side. Like,
that's cool.
He wouldn't have said that if I wasn't interested in the business side of things. So we would talk, hey, all right, well, we would have like 30 minutes after, or an hour after the day of us seeing XYZ patients, and he would be like, hey, man, if I were to do it, I would do this. Oh, wait a minute, okay. I got to write that down.
Yeah.
Hey, if I were to do it now, Kev, this is kind of how I would do it.
I can see that kind of like curious brain at work. I mean, there's been a couple things we've talked about just during the podcast already where you're taking notes, like saving it for later. That's awesome. So I could just imagine you kind of diving deep into it, working in these clinics and these rotations, and just soaking it all in, like getting the business sense, the actual work sense, and like combining those. Yeah,
and that's the entrepreneur side of things. And it comes from the physical therapist, because that's where the insecurities come into play from when it comes to open up your own clinic. Hey, am I good enough? Right? At
the actual craft.
At the actual craft.
Yeah.
So this is where I realized that, I can do this. Right? First of all, it's a long life path and journey of continuous learning.
Yeah.
Right? So I am
refreshed to hear that perspective, because that's got to be one of the most pressing issues in the medical community, 100%. Right? Is people having this idea that I'm going to freaking power through this entire course of education, and once I graduate and I finish and I get a job, I'm educated. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it how I learned it. And that's such a problem, because science is constantly changing. Yep. There's always more to learn in every industry. Like, you can always do it better. So I like that you I like that perspective transfers over to that.
It's my sport, right? So, look at LeBron James. He had to learn how to shoot threes, right? You figure out, okay, what do I got to do? And because of where I'm at, I own my own practice, I can essentially niche or specialize so I can continue to get really good at what I want to get good at.
Exactly.
Right? So I don't have to learn a lot about the acute hospital setting anymore, right? I can go, okay, I want to learn about outpatient sports orthopedic, right? And we'll get into what how I think about that.
So you kind of go through these rotations, and how did you end up choosing? What was the thought process like, I guess, in you choosing what that specialty was going to be kind of coming out of?
Oh, that's what it was.
Rotations?
So I was really, I've always been fascinated about the sports aspect of it, right? Okay, and the cool thing, my first rotation, I was fortunate enough to be able to work with the American top team athletes.
That's awesome.
Down in Fort Lauderdale and Boca area, right? So I was right off rip, professional athletes.
That's awesome.
Like I'm talking about UFC champions, right?
Very cool.
Like really cool stuff. And the best thing I learned from that was, oh wait, these people, they're really good at what they do, right? They're not good at physical therapy and knowing their bodies, right? Like that's my specialty.
Right.
So I can actually help these people, right? Like what I'm doing at the point right now, and I just started my rotations.
Because you would almost think that like a top level professional athlete just has it all figured out.
100%.
Like especially when it comes to moving their body, you would think they have everything figured out, but really they just know how to train well and get better.
They're really good at discipline. Right? They're really good at the mindset of, okay, I'm going to get something done. So you have the discipline aspect, and they're really good at their sport.
Excuse me. I bet it's so much fun to work with people that are that disciplined too, because you know that like once they come in and you walk them through things, they're actually going to stick to those things and really apply them.
They also love the really good ones, I should say. They're curious too. So that's where we kind of align. There's a level of, oh wait, that works. So they love to be educated. Yeah. But so there was a confidence that was built from that. Now there's an insecurity that comes from, okay, well, how do other people in your profession look at you? Right. I'm fresh. I'm fresh. So they're probably looking at me being like, he doesn't know anything.
Anything that's deep education, like where you have to get a doctorate, is going to be like that, I think.
Yeah, there's like a weird competition to it, right?
It's kind of like imposter syndrome.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. So the one thing that I realized that, yes, intellectually speaking, I love what I do. So there's a certain level of like, okay, I love what I do. And there's people that are way better, at least because maybe experience or whatever. But even then, those that I worked with at the time, it was like, they might've been 5-10 years in. Yeah. And I was like, the difference isn't that much. Like
they felt like your peers more.
They felt like peers. And I was like, wait a minute. So if I wait 10 years, I'm only going to be that, like, why am I going to wait 10 years to open up my clinic? I'm just going to be that? Like, that's not that far, right?
You were kind of like, think I'm already there pretty much.
Yeah, like I belong in the pros, right? If you look at the sports, like, I'm here, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's I guess this doesn't really happen as much anymore, but it used to be that you could go straight from high school to the NBA.
To the NBA.
Yeah. I think Michael Jordan did it, right?
No, Jordan played for North Carolina.
Oh, he did.
LeBron did. Kobe did, right?
LeBron and Kobe did.
Yeah, but like those, so that idea of like, oh wait, okay, I can do it. I put enough time and enough work. I love this enough to be able to do it. But the biggest difference that I noticed was when you're in the profession for that long, there's a certain and you're kind of, burnout is the wrong word, but maybe it is. Maybe it's the right word.
Yeah, it happens.
They lose it. I would always see kind of a level of they lost the passion for it.
Lost the passion, lost some of the curiosity, maybe. Like deep commitment to the continued education and all of that.
And it had to do not necessarily with the profession. It had to do with the way that the profession is run, like the
business side.
The business side of things.
Well, this is such a trap for business owners, for all types of business owners, is getting caught in working in the business versus working on the business. Yes. Ideally, the more you can work on the business, the more the business itself is going to grow, right? Yeah. But you can only wear so many hats, and you can only do so much of that when you have to worry about the operations as well. So that is, I would say, one of the biggest keys to breaking, at least like in my estimations, like the kind of first plateau of being a business owner. You can be you can be this great business owner and kind of like build this business that's just you doing everything, but you kind of inherently have this ceiling that looks a little bit different for every business, but you kind of inherently have this ceiling built in that you're never going to be able to get past unless you can figure out how to put the automation or the people in place that allow you to work on the business more than just in the business.
You have to have a team of some sort.
You have to,
for sure,
absolutely,
for sure. But and those individuals, those other professionals, they because they weren't on the business side of things, they were just workers. They treated it, and so they lost the level of like relationship building with people.
Right.
They forgot that we're in a customer service based business.
Yeah.
Well, this is our skill set. Yes, we make them feel better, and yes, they kind of have to come, right? Or not kind, but they come because they're like they see somebody come post surgery, right? They're going, but what we forget is the differentiator. We spend time with these people.
Yeah.
Right. So the number one thing that we should care about is patient experience
and helping the people. Yeah.
So when you think about customer experience, and even in my case, in my profession, we have what's called evidence-based practice, right? So we look at, okay, well, based on what's going on here, what is the best ways that you can kind of treat this diagnosis, right? If you look at it, the number one thing that you really see is patient education. That is the number one thing that helps people kind of get better.
Yeah.
Right? Because it is the primer for people to be open-minded to what you're about to tell them to do.
Because you could tell them exactly what to do, but if they're not listening,
it doesn't matter. One of the best advice I ever got in my life, from professionally speaking, I also had this habit where any PT, especially before I was a PT, I would always say, "Hey, what makes a good PT? What makes it the best PT?" I would always ask that question, and the best answer I got was, because it caught me off guard. He was like, "You got to be a great car salesman." And it caught me off guard because I was like, that sounds sketchy.
Right. Everyone has that kind of preconceived notion of the sleazy car salesman.
Yes. But he said, you got to be a good car salesman. What that means is, first of all, that person has got to feel like you don't actually care about the money you're making. You're actually trying to sell them a car that's beneficial to them.
Okay.
Right? Hey, I actually care about what you're trying to find here. I know you came here because you're trying to look for something. How can I help you? Right? And then I'm not going to sleazeball talk you into XYZ. No. How can I help you?
That's the difference between a good car salesman and a sleazy car salesman.
Yeah. Gotcha. And it's like, okay, and so how do you get them to buy in? In other words, how do you get them, you tell them you're there for them. How do you get them to buy in? Right? And then you help them get to where they need to go. So because from a PT, I can have all the skills in the world. I'm talking about all the manual skills in the world you can think of, right? All this, and that. Also, the best exercises. This is how you do it, blah, blah, blah. If the person doesn't feel like you actually care about them, they're going to leave. I'm getting the fuck out of this car sales. I'm getting, the hell out of this PT clinic. Right?
I've got a good quick anecdote on that I've told it on here before, so I'll kind of run through it quick, but you'll like this. It's very relevant here. The personal training program that I went into, it was out of Gainesville Health and Fitness in Gainesville. It's what I would consider probably the best in the state. There's actually a physical therapy practice attached to it. So you can go shadow them, and I did a little bit of it. Like, it was awesome. Yeah. And it's meant to kind of like feed into that ideally. But there was like 45 of us, like huge program with like the best talent leading it and educating it. You actually can like enroll in like classes that like reaffirm your personal training education. So it was fantastic. But I actually didn't get the job the first time I applied. I had even moved there having decided I was going to go into that program, but I didn't get the job the first time I went into it because I went in with this like really deep like exercise knowledge that I was bringing that like I had been working on for years, and I knew that that's what I wanted, but I came in just like with this chip on my shoulder trying to flash all my exercise knowledge, and that's like how I came across, and I didn't get it, and I was like so frustrated afterwards because I was like, I knew everything. There's no way I wasn't like one of the most knowledgeable guys like that interviewed for it. And so I called her back, and I ended up setting up a meeting just to ask about like why I didn't get it basically. And to her credit, it was really awesome that she went out of her way to do that. Like she met with me, like explained that it's not about like, we're not looking for that necessarily. Like you can kind of learn that as you go, but we're looking for someone that can educate people and that people like can form a relationship with, that can form the relationship with the clients and like really curate that and talk to people. And so I came back in just way more chilled out, tried to take that chip off my shoulder and just talked to it. They basically had you do like a walkthrough session, like a whole session as an interview. And so I came back in and just tried to talk to him, get to know him a little bit, like form that relationship, build that relationship as much as I could, and walked him through a simpler exercise routine just to get him started. And then I got it. And that's
I
what
love
it's all
that.
about.
I love that.
It's
love
like
that.
the same exact thing. You got to be able to form that relationship.
And genuine. Like,
Exactly.
that's another thing is you can also fake that,
Yeah.
right? There's people that fake that.
Mm-hmm.
People read that,
Yep.
right? Even if they might not read it the first time, might
Mm-hmm.
not read it the second time, right? My whether it's a gift and a curse, and I consider it a gift until I genuinely care.
Yeah.
Right. The reason why
You have to.
The reason why I can say like, I can see it can be a curse, right? Is because it can also weigh on you. So you have to know how to deal with those emotions, right? Mm-hmm. But I genuinely care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to. I think that's going to serve you really well in this practice.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about, so we'd kind of gotten to the point, right, where we're talking about you knew for a while already that you wanted to have your own practice. You've been kind of working towards it, learning it, but you have this preconceived notion that you have to get in, do 5 to 10 years and then get to it. But now you're starting to challenge that a little bit. What did your first step in the direction of having your own practice look like?
I heard a random video on Instagram of a guy named Greg Todd, who shout out to Greg Todd. He's like, have you ever thought about owning a practice right out of PT school? And at that I was like,
Like blew your mind a
it
little
blew my
bit?
mind. I was like, wait a minute.
Do that?
I was like, I was like literally to the point where I was like, legally, can you do that? And I was like, 100% you can.
Yeah.
And at
Well, you
that,
start to kind of work backwards and just think like, okay, but why can't you?
yes.
Yeah.
So at that point, literally from that point, I said, because I already knew that I wanted to do it. So all I needed was the affirmation that it was literally possible.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Exactly.
it's so crazy, like, that it's legally, literally possible.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
It's just not the norm.
Not the norm. So once that happened, I didn't care about the norm. I was like, right? I was like, oh man, this is awesome, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, now let me reverse engineer.
Yep.
Let me figure this out. Now it's okay. Now I'm learning how can I do it right out. What's the best ways to do it, right? Because I don't have 5 years of being in the industry to realize that. Okay, wait, now I have to, right? So I right out of PT school. Actually, quick anecdote. Because I think this is important. My first time taking my PT license, I failed.
Wow. Really?
Yeah.
So what do you think happened there?
I graduated in May. I took mine in July.
Yeah.
I had a lot of life stuff that went on.
Gotcha. Like
Right.
during that summer, the months leading up to it.
A lot of life stuff that didn't allow me to build enough confidence. Goes back to I didn't get to keep enough promises from a studying perspective to put me in a situation to be able to pass.
Yeah.
Right. So I failed my first one.
How'd you feel after that?
Devastated.
Yeah.
I was devastated because I felt like I let down the people that supported me this entire time. Like I was like, oh my.
That's like the big test.
That was it. That's all. If you can only fail it, I believe you can only fail it. I think it's 3 times. I believe. I think
Ever?
Yeah.
Wow.
At that point, you're starting to question like, did I just waste like, a lot of student loans, like a lot of time to like, oh my God,
Yeah.
a lot. So, but the thing that got me through was the select people that I really care about and their point of view and their opinion of me. I told them I had a preconceived expectation of what they were going to do.
Yeah.
They're going to be disappointed. They're going to be like, they're going to shun me away. Like I had those thought processes for no legitimate reason because they love me and care about me. But once I told them, they immediately were like, all right, what are we going to do next to get you through?
Love it.
I said, oh man, okay,
Yeah.
I'm good.
So that would probably set you right back on
Right.
track.
And on top of that, go back to my first mentor, Chris. Right. So my first 3, when you graduate PT school, you can work under a temporary license for 6 months. So you have 6 months to get your license. So the first 3 months I didn't work because I was like, I'm just going to focus on studying, and my life was crazy at that time. Right. So once I failed, I had no money. I was betting everything on passing that.
Wow.
Everything.
Because once you pass, you get right back into work again.
Yeah. So I was like, I bet everything.
Yeah.
Right. And got myself in crazy debt to be able to get to that point and failed. I hit up Chris. Next thing you know, a month later, he was like, Kevin, so he hired me after I failed my PT license.
Wow.
So he had that much trust, and he knew my ability. There's different between like taking a test and treating somebody, right? So he hired me under my PT license, knowing that I had just failed, but I had one more attempt at it. Within my PT license, like he just hired me,
Yeah.
and I can technically, if I fail my next one, he just went through this entire process, convinced the management, convinced everybody to hire me, and I can be out of there in 2 months if I fail this next coming up.
Wow.
Test. So he put so much trust in me. Right?
Yeah.
thankfully,
So you go into that with the pressure of just 1,000 worlds on you.
yes.
Like, what happened? You passed.
I passed, right?
That's awesome.
So for anyone who, because I'm not the first person that's ever gone through that and like failed, but and for future people who happen to go through that, like just go to your loved ones, trust it, don't have expectations of what you think they're gonna say. Just tell them, and then work even harder. You know, self-aware, see what happened, and go to it. But so yeah, that happened, and then he had already known what I was in the process of. He knew I was gonna open up a clinic, right? Like he already. 5 years ago or 6 years ago, but when he had asked, when he hired me, he was like, "What are you going to do?" So he hired me knowing that it was a temporary thing.
Yeah.
Right. So he, or at least he knew that what my vision was.
He sounds like just incredibly committed to the craft of physical therapy and improving the craft.
Yeah, and I think a big part of it, and I think he would say this, is that he also saw himself a little bit in me.
Yeah.
Like if I were to do it, cool. I would have done it like that, right? Like if I were in your shoes, I'd be doing it like the way you're kind of doing it.
It's the kind of people you want to find and develop.
So I'm super grateful for him and appreciative. But he hired me, so I worked purposely. Also, we had a conversation. I was offered full-time jobs and money. Luckily, I'm grateful, right? I'm humbly grateful, right? Humbly, I'm using that word. I'm grateful, confidently, that I was offered jobs, and I turned them down because they wanted me to work a lot of hours, right?
But you knew what you wanted.
I knew what I wanted, so I started off at like 7 hours to 10 hours to 15 to 20, but I purposely, I'm not going to work more than 20 because I need that time to set up my business.
Yeah.
Right. So I even sacrificed pay.
So literally right off the bat, like out of your doctorate program and passing your test, you're already setting up. That's all. Yeah,
I sacrificed that level of like right off. Mind you, I'm in school since I'm 27 years old. Yeah. Where I get my doctorate, and then people are offering you X amount of money, and I was like,
and you're in debt from your student loans, so it's like you
and I failed, and I just failed. Yeah. And so to have I'm gonna put my foot down, so I want to do.
Yeah.
Right. And so at that point, there's a level of like, oh, I got to make this work. Right.
You're on the hook.
Yeah. So
I think there's a lot of, I want to just
quick
tangent there. I think there's a lot of value in just putting yourself on the hook for something, like having big goals. And I mean, like you said, you failed at your test, but you got through it and you passed eventually and got back on track for your goal. But just putting yourself on the hook for some big thing, you see amazing things come out of yourself. Just
100%.
Committing to something that you want to get done.
100%.
Seeing the bigger picture.
And that's what it was all about. It was like, okay, I got to see this through.
Yeah.
Right. And so, because I also knew I had a self-aware of like, if this doesn't work, they're going to still offer that job.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Thankfully. Right. So during that time, so mind you, this is October when I got my license. Right. So I would work on the business aspect of things. This is when, so I had to get the legality side of it, blah, blah, blah.
This is October of last year?
Of last year.
Right. Okay.
So I had to figure out, okay, how do you actually open up a clinic? Like, in I'm not talking about like the business side. I'm talking about literally like, am I gonna, where's the brick and mortar? I'm gonna get it. Okay, am I gonna rent inside of just somebody else's place for a little bit just to understand and get good at the system side of things from like the software.
Even just the commercial real estate game is a little tricky. It was tricky to find this place. I mean,
exactly.
Like you have to kind of like call a bunch of people or just like look around a bunch until someone even like gives you the time of day to like give you an honest search for
and there's even like if it's not a class, like there's certain classes of commercial real estate that you can't even open up a PT clinic at, right? Like there's certain, like people don't even realize that side of things. Like there's a lot, but there's not somebody doing that for me. I'm calling around doing that, right?
Yeah.
So I was the first thing I did in October, January, so couple months go by. January, I ended up renting out of the back of somebody's facility. Right, I would go there on the day, days that I wasn't working my part-time shift, which was starting to pick up a little. Was starting to get like even. I had to test the boundaries a little bit. Some days, some weeks would be 40 hours, some weeks would be 25. I had to be like, all right, I need to stop. I really need to hone in. But that experience of working at that other facility, I'm so blessed for them because they nothing bad about them at all. They're incredible. I love what they do, and the fact that they gave me that opportunity is amazing. But it didn't allow me to
build it the way you wanted to build it.
The way I want to build it.
Yeah.
I was like, this isn't a patient experience I want people to have. Right. So one day I bet you now, this is so funny how life works because I'm really big in like manifesting things. Right. So that moment where I call my mom, I remember calling my mom, being like, "Ma, I can't, this isn't what I want. I want something more, right? I know maybe I want something more, right?" So that next day, it was in the morning, 6:00 in the morning. I park. There's this random person like walking around. She looks lost, right? I go up there. I've worked at this place for a long time. I go, hey, do you want me to help you? Where are you looking for something? And she goes, no, I actually own the building. I go, excuse me? I go, yeah. She goes, yeah, I was just looking around to make sure everything's good. I go, can I ask you a question? It's like, how much is rent? She goes, it's funny you say that. We actually have a corner lot just empty.
No way.
Right? She said to me, XYZ, how much it is. I immediately got on the phone and was like, I think I'm going to pull the trigger.
Wow. What a serendipitous little thing like that.
The day after.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Wow.
Crazy.
That's amazing.
And so fast forward, that happened in like February. I signed the contract because I had already worked in the building, right?
Right.
With my other P. So I knew the area. I knew the PT. There's already a PT business there, so I knew you can open up a PT business as well.
Yeah.
So I was aware of all that. So I was like, okay, I'm signing a contract, sign my lease. It took a few months to build out to be exactly what I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
And then we opened up in May of this year.
Wow. And then here you are, you got your own practice.
Yeah.
Congrats, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean that is so exciting. Like it's been like this thing that you've been working towards for so long, and now you got here. And then so now obviously we're in September of this year, so you've had it open for a few months. How's that gone so far?
Incredibly blessed. But it wouldn't have happened, and this is why I love what you're doing, because it wouldn't have happened if I understood business. Right? I ended up getting a business coach, and just because I felt like as I was learning a lot about it, there was because I'm an anomaly in terms of like most people don't open it, right? It's more of a franchise or these big businesses, not a lot of private practice. I was like, there's something missing, because the way that you meet overhead, if you do it traditionally, I couldn't provide the same experience I wanted to. To give you an example, when I worked for traditional insurance-based clinic, I would see, and this was a good business, a good business that cared about patient experience as much as they can, considering that they're insurance-based. I would see anywhere from like 18 to 22 people a day.
What?
So think about that.
You're kidding.
If I'm working a 10 to 12-hour shift, I'm seeing 2 people a day. Mind you, have to document for that.
Wow.
Right? And they care. So what I mean by that is they tap out at 2 an hour. If you work at other, I'm not going to name, but other more commercial mill places, you're going 3 to 4 an hour. So 3 to 4 an hour times a 8-hour shift or a 10-hour shift, think about that. Do the math on that. Right?
Yeah, you're not going to have time to form a relationship. One, you're not going to be able to keep track of the relationships. And
ask me what a busy day is for me.
What's a busy day for you?
If I see 7 people.
Yeah. Gives you at least an hour with every person.
And the reason why is because I realized I'm an out-of-network doctor, so I don't deal with insurance. I have a contract with the client.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm in what you call a problem-solving based business. Right. So the way that is very different is, traditionally speaking, if I'm working outpatient with insurance, so what they care about is your ADLs. How can you get dressed? Can you go to the bathroom? Can you walk? Those kind of things, your basic necessities of life.
Right.
Right. Once they do that, they go, okay, they can.
As long as those are clear.
Only clear. Hey, get the heck out of here. Right. We don't want to continue paying for your services.
Yeah.
Right. And you get paid, and you go in every day and have to pay your copay. Right. I'm in a problem solving. So what the first thing I do is go. So a client comes in, and this is what makes us a little bit different. It's an interview for both of us. Right. I want to work with athletes.
Yeah.
Right. What is an athlete? This is where my framework comes in. I want someone that wants to or does live an active lifestyle.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what is that? Now, what are the frameworks of an active lifestyle? An active lifestyle is, what are your daily activities? What is your exercise? Like, what do you do for exercise, or do you do exercise? Sport participation, right? And also work demands.
Yep.
So the way you interact with those 4 foundational thought processes is what makes you an athlete. right? So even if you don't participate in sport, that's fine. You still are an athlete in what you do on a daily basis, right?
Mm-hmm.
You pick up your children, you walk, you know, all these things, right? Your work demands. How do you athletically perform in that field,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then your exercise. Everyone should be exercising. Okay, well, how good are you? Even if it's something as simple as, God, I would love to walk 30 minutes. I would love to walk. Okay, well, we got to get you to perform that.
Yeah.
Right. Or somebody who goes, oh, I want to be able to run a half a marathon. All right. Well, what part of your injury history is stopping you from doing that?
Yeah.
Right. And then some people it's all for, right? Because they want to get really good and be super athletic and all those things.
And you can figure out what those things are so that you can do your reverse engineering thing and work backwards from that, man.
Right. So that's literally where the problem solving comes, which is why the business is literally who I am. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So you reverse engineer. So, hey, what are your goals?
Yeah.
What are your goals? And a lot of people, what they typically do is undersell themselves, especially if they're in pain or going through injury.
Mm-hmm.
I just want this to stop hurting.
Yeah.
No, the pain is one thing. What is this actually stopping you? So, for example, my back hurts. I just want to stop hurting. Well,
and you're able to bring that experience of having seen tremendous things possible that
Yes.
you didn't previously believe were possible
yeah.
happen through physical therapy. And you can relay that experience to them to make sure that they understand what is possible.
So they undersell themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I just want back pain. Well, is that what you want? Or do you have your daughter's wedding and you want to be able to walk through the aisle?
Yeah.
Is that the athletic performance, right?
Do you want to be able to pick up your grandchildren
Yes.
maybe 5 years later?
Yes. Do you want to be able to work and have a full day's work without popping pills to be able to get through?
Yeah.
Right. Or, oh no, I've never run. We have a client right now that came in with lower back and bilateral knee pain. So both knees hurt. Came in at a certain weight. Was like, I would love to be able to go up and down stairs without my heart feeling like it's gonna pump out his chest. Cardiovascular issues, right?
Yeah.
He was like, oh, I just want to be able to go up and down without it hurting. I said, was that really the goal? Like, or have you ever ran before? No, I don't think it's possible. Okay, give me 4 months. We'll run a 5K.
Yep.
Wait, what?
You keep zooming into what they really, really want. Like
What's going to make you happy?
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Right.
You take it a step further and a step further.
Exactly. And then through, like I said, through my experience, I understand what is the potential, what they're doing based on the knowledge I have with, seeing and also so three things: evidence-based, patient experience, and my own experience is what makes up the pie of what I think you're able to do from a potential standpoint.
Okay.
All right. So that client, 4 months later is actually tomorrow. Ironically, we're running our 5K tomorrow. He dropped 60 pounds, no back pain, no knee pain. Now he can deadlift. Now he can bench or squat. Now he can do lunges, everything like that. Right. So you reverse engineer, and the what makes it really different is we pay based on the contract that we negotiate, based on the severity of what's going on. We pay up front. Right.
For the eventual goal.
Yes.
Wow, that's interesting. I've never heard that model.
Yes, or if it's like depending on the amount, okay, we might separate it into 2 to 3 payments or whatever,
Right.
whatever, depending on the situation, right? That's where the learning how to be a business person, whatever, comes into play, right? You got to put on the hat. But
and now, you mentioned that a busy day for you is like seeing like 7 people. Do you kind of have a set, like a preset cap on the amount of clients that you would take?
you'll love this. What's a typical NBA roster?
It's like 7 or 8?
So
no, it's more than that, right? It's like, is it more like 11?
So
12?
it's typically the max that they'll go is about 15.
15.
Right?
Okay.
NBA roster.
Yeah.
So that's the max amount of clients I'll keep on my roster.
I love it.
Right. It's literally
Love
so
it.
you see
There
how
you
I
go.
incorporate.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. I look at it as like if there's more than 15 people that want to work with me, which I'll be blessed for, then instead of me spreading myself thin
Yeah.
and going nope, I'm gonna bend my rule and go more than 15. No, I just realized that maybe that just means I gotta charge a little more.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
I'm gonna keep my patient experience. It means so much to me.
You're going to keep your patient experience, and you're going to be working with the kind of people that you want to be working with.
Yes.
Because the kind of person that is willing to pay that extra price for it is going to be the kind of person that is really, really coming in dedicated to getting it done and making sure that whatever their goal is going to happen.
And it's not, people think it's like these high level athletes, right? Like, oh, it's the professional basketball player. No, that is like the 1% of your clientele.
Yeah.
Like it is the average Joe that loves to live active, like that wants to be active with their family and that really generally cares about their health. Like that's who I love to work with. And the cool thing about paying up front like that makes it different from traditional is there's a couple things that happen. Like I'm very open and honest about this. If you pay a good a premium, right? First of all, you get premium experience, yes, but you get premium accountability and premium buy-in,
Yeah.
right? You spend money, you're gonna go,
Yeah.
right?
It's true.
And guess
You're
what?
on the hook.
So they're on the hook, And the best part about that is there's a couple things. Like I said, I'm open and honest. So, all right, let's talk about why I do this, right? And they're there. This is part of the conversation we have when it comes to the point where either I've realized that this is somebody I want to work with, right? Or they've realized that they want to work with me. Is I go, because you pay the premium, whatever it is, one, you're unhooked, but also if you miss a visit, traditionally speaking, I don't get your copay.
Right.
Right? You kind of like that you miss a visit. I just saved, 50, 40, 80, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
You miss a visit with me.
You already paid for it.
You already paid for it.
Yeah. You're screwing yourself over.
You're screwing yourself over.
Yeah.
Right? That
puts them on the hook to show up.
Exactly. Yeah. So the cancellation rate is very, very low.
Yeah.
Like if they miss it, it's because something's going on.
Yeah.
Right? So that's one thing. And the second thing is, it also puts me on the hook. Because guess what? The faster I get you better, the faster that open roster spot gets open.
It's true.
Right? So so
you're going to put your all into making sure that they can reach their goal.
Yes. Because if I get you better in 6 weeks versus 8, now if I fit somebody else in, now from a business perspective, I now make more money.
Makes sense.
Right?
I think it's a really great business model.
Right. But that is very different. You can't do that with a traditional base.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like the traditional kind of business model with insurance and copay and everything is just, getting as many people in there as possible. I really like this model a lot better.
I look at fine dining versus fast food.
Yeah.
That's the way somebody had said that to me one time, and it was like, oh, wait a minute, like that makes complete sense, right? When you go into a fast food is about just getting in and out.
Yeah.
Right. Fine dining, it's like I know I'm paying a little bit more, right? Which is okay because I'm also. No one goes into it being like once you've signed up for it and it's for you, you're like, you're excited.
You're all in.
You're all in.
It's an experience.
I can't wait for the smells. I can't wait to see what dessert. I can't wait to the wine that they're gonna come. What are they gonna do when they come in? Like
great conversation with the waiter, like the whole shebang.
Exactly. Yeah. That means something to me, right?
Exactly.
That's the part that I crave is how can I present a customer service experience based situation because. Me versus another PT, we can both be very good, right? We're probably going to know some of the similar things. There's evidence-based practice for a reason. So the best practice, we should both know it.
Yeah.
Right? So the real separator from physical therapy is customer service and patient experience.
Yeah.
Right? And it's very hard to provide that when you got to see 18 to 22 people a day.
Yeah, but if you take that time, you give the premium experience, you get to serve up your passion, what you're passionate about in the best light possible and really drive it home to the people and educate them and leave a lasting impression.
Yep.
Now, I know we have a little bit of a time limit here, so I want to make sure we get to everything.
Yep.
The one kind of question before I get to a couple of the repeat questions I had is, what do you see as the vision for how you want Swish to grow?
Wow. So this is something that me and my business and my business partners, we talk about is, especially since we just opened, is figuring out, do we want to right now be a lifestyle business versus a business? Okay.
What do you mean by that?
Perfect. Good. Great question. So lifestyle business is when you're creating a business to fit your lifestyle.
Right.
Right. So I can control my schedule. I can do those things, but I don't really make money unless I'm working.
Right.
Right. So I can take off when I want to take off. I can do whatever I want to do. I control, but it doesn't work. Business is I got people underneath me. I make money passively. Right. I go to sleep. People working. I know they're working. That kind of thing. I go back and forth with it. I've settled and I'm very happy with the idea of me where I'm currently at, loving the idea.
Which is more of the lifestyle?
More of the lifestyle.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because fascinated is probably the word that's coming to mind of branding and marketing. So because it goes back to me thinking if I live my life like a professional athlete, right? So if you're a business, you're not the face.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's going to be people under you. No matter how good you are at setting a cultural, it always gets a little bit diluted from one person to the next.
Yes.
It's impossible for it not to.
It's impossible. So I'm just out. I'm obsessed with how I can put my hands on this experience, right? Not teach somebody how I think that, how they're going to do what I do, right? So I'm just trying to be really good at what I'm doing, right? So I love the idea of going, okay, I think you're gonna like this. Is I think of it as two different things. there's Swish Physical Therapy, which is the organization, the Miami Heat,
Yeah.
right?
Nice.
I'm Dwayne Wade,
There you go.
right? I play for Swish. I just so happen to own it as well, but I'm the quote unquote star player,
Yeah.
right?
And you like being in that spot because it allows you to do your best work.
Best work.
Yeah.
Exactly, because I still love to work, right? Versus the management. Do you see the
Yeah.
difference? I love the work versus the management right now.
Exactly.
And so I'm fascinated. Okay, well, let me build this brand as Dr. Coach Kev, and how I can be an advocate for future business entrepreneurs in the place of physical therapy, but also be really good at physical therapy, right?
Yeah.
So like Dwayne Wade can't do the brand side of things unless he's not really good at basketball.
Right.
Right. So you got to know at the end of the day, like I'm a physical therapist, right? But I'm also an entrepreneur, right? But I know stuff doesn't happen unless I'm good at physical therapy,
Yeah.
right? I just so happen to work for Swish, who is the franchise that I work for, that I play for,
Yeah.
right? So that's where I see us building, is continuing to go. Okay, I'm gonna brand this and become whatever I make it, right? It's almost like has this weird taboo feeling of, wow, he's a doctor, but he's trying to brand himself. It's like, that's unfair. Why is it that I have to limit what I can and cannot do? Because you're kind of told not to. Right?
Yeah.
Because if you work for insurance, you're signed. You can't do certain things. You're signed against it. You literally can't. Right?
Makes sense.
You can't sign a brand deal. Right? You can't XYZ. You can't. You can't even take like record videos and like post them on social media and stuff like that. Like it's like unless you
Really?
because you're working.
Wow.
You can't.
That's incredibly limiting.
Incredibly limiting. So they, just like any field though, they suppress and they're going to control by a bigger hand, because you're given a certain contract to say, hey, this is what you're working for.
Right.
Right. I lose out on the security of that business, but it allows me to go, okay, well, let me take it from an entrepreneur standpoint and build as whatever I'm doing. It just so happens
Do it exactly the way you want
I
to.
want to, and my trade just happens to be physical therapy, or a doctor of physical therapy, right? Versus, I mean, you see people like, there's skills trainers that can brand themselves. I've always been obsessed with personal training. Like, there's so many personal trainers that are really freaking cool that make a huge difference in people, and they have Under Armour deals, right? They have Nike deals. Like, they're helping out the foundation of their future, of their family and their future families, because of their ability to brand, and they just happen to use this trait of this.
And if you can grow your brand and have other revenue streams coming in through your brand, that can allow you to stick with that practice of just being the best physical therapist that you can be.
Exactly.
And forming the best relationships that you can, rather than having to build this huge thing.
Exactly.
I like that.
So that's where the vision is coming in, is how can I make this 2K player mode as best as possible?
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Well, I have a couple, we talked about this a little bit off air, but I have a couple kind of repeat questions that I like to ask every guest. The first question that I have for you is, say that you could hop in a time machine right now and go back and visit just a younger Kev as he was about to get into just learning the field of physical therapy and eventually becoming, a physical therapist, doctor physical therapist. And you could talk to 14-year-old Kevin and give him some of the wisdom and tips that you've learned along the way so far. What are a couple things that you would tell him to do differently?
Enjoy the moment. Enjoy the present moment. So the definition of anxiety is the fear of the future, right?
Yeah.
So that comes with, I'm curious by nature, everything like that. I've always have been, but there's a certain sense of you always got to take care of your mental health, right?
Yeah.
So I would tell them to take a little bit more attention into that. Hey, it's okay to actually be present.
Yeah.
You're not only, that's not only good for you, but it's also good for the people that love and support you, that are around you. Don't make them feel like you're not present.
Yeah.
And that was something that I still struggle with, and
Something I struggle with a lot too.
right. You're kind of you're stuck in that what's next. But it's actually okay to go, hey, let me be in the present, because it actually sparks your creativity for the future later on. Taking that mental rest on that part of it. So I would generally just tell them, hey, because luckily everything's kind of been okay from the actions of professional and everything, but enjoy it a little bit more.
Love that.
Yeah.
Awesome. And the other question I have for you is, this is Profession Session, the show. I'm curious, what does it mean to you personally to be a professional?
I think there's levels. So I always go back to sports. I think it's the closest metaphor to life, right? So you have levels of professionalism, right? So I always break it down to, like, you have the people that are barely on the roster.
Yep.
They're just doing the bare minimum, right? Then you have rotational players. So professionally speaking, they show up, they contribute to the team. That they're a positive influence. But essentially, you can replace them with somebody who has similar skill set.
Yeah.
Right. And then you have the professional level of the good players. You can't really replace them, but if their contract comes up, maybe you can think about going a different way. And then you have the star players you build around. So professionally speaking, being self-aware of who do you want to be.
Yeah.
One is not less than the other, by the way. Right?
They're all important.
They're all important, right? That's what makes up a team, because everyone want to be a star player wouldn't work.
It's true.
So I always tell people, or like the professionally speaking, what do you want to be?
Yeah.
Self-awareness, I truly believe, is a superpower. And the more self-aware you are, the better it is, because then you can reverse engineer to be that person you want to be, or that person you assume to be. So professionally speaking,
if you're honest and you decide you want to be a rotational player, you really want to be the best rotational player that you can be, and you hone in on that and become that, you're going to do great things.
And if you get traded, you're not even mad. You knew you're a rotational player.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's truly like if you're just self-aware.
Yeah.
Right? Now some people, I tell my athletes this for sure, the ones that for real actually focus on sports specifically, especially high school athletes.
Yeah.
First conversation I have with them is like, what are you trying to be? You're trying to be Division III, Division II, Division I, overseas. What are we trying to go? NBA? I go, the most disrespectful thing you can do, professionally speaking, right, is say you want to be a star player but act like a rotational player.
Yeah. You're not being honest with yourself at that point.
Disrespectful. I truly believe that's the most disrespectful thing. Not only because you might be able to, because you could also fool the people around you that are trying to support you in your dream to be a star player, but you act rotation.
Yeah.
And so being a professional is knowing what level you want to be and being that person.
I love that. This is why I love this question so much. That's a completely different answer than I've ever gotten, but that's fantastic. I love that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, Kevin, is there anything else that you would want to kind of leave the audience with?
Follow me. No, I'm kidding.
No, I will put I'll put all of your information in the show notes and in the description so that people can check you out.
The only reason why I even said that is because I feel like every podcast ends with that. And I was like, man, is this
you
gotta
go with
that?
You got to go with the plugs. This is the time for the plugs.
Wait a minute, I don't even know what to plug. At Dr. Coach Kev.
Yeah,
that's really there. That's really the one. You kind of find everything from there. But
awesome
on Instagram. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I will make sure that everyone can find that. And thank you again so much for being on. This has been awesome.
Yeah. Please, hopefully it's not the last time, man.
Absolutely, dude. This has been awesome. And I'm really excited to see you build out Swish and keep going with that. I mean, it's in the early days and it sounds like you're going really great places with it.
Appreciate you, man. Seriously.
Awesome, man.
Thank you.
Well, thanks again. And this has been Profession Session. Thanks again for tuning in. Stay tuned for future episodes. And until next time, tuning out. Thanks so much for tuning into Profession Session. I'm your host, Brody Vinson. Stay tuned for new episodes every week and short clips of deep dives into specific topics that I put out on different social media channels. We could be found on YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, all major podcast platforms. You can find my guest in the details of this video or podcast. And if you happen to know a young standout business owner, professional, or entrepreneur that you would think would be a good fit for Profession Session, DM me or get in contact with me anywhere and just let me know. And they could be the next to tell their story here. Until next time, again, this has been Profession Session. Stay focused, stay hustling, and stay networking.